Let's talk about the side of passion and dedication that doesn't get enough airtime: burnout. Even those of us who love our work, pushing harder and farther, we might not see the burnout coming. It's not about the immediate overload, but the subtle signs that we miss along the way because we're in love with what we do.
Welcome to Paradigm Shifts with your host, Kayshia Kruger. As an organization development practitioner and executive coach, I work with leaders to create positive changes in the workplace using behavioral science. And here, we're on a mission to rethink the way we work, lead, and ultimately live. So, let's unpack light bulb moments for paradigm shifts within your workplace and beyond. Are you ready for a shift? Let's dive in.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to season 2 of the Paradigm Shifts podcast. I first want to express my heartfelt gratitude for all of the incredible support during this longer than expected break. Today, we get to dive deep into a topic that's close to my heart and I believe relevant to many of you out there, pushing the boundaries of passion and dedication in your work. And I'm thrilled to kick off the session of this season with a very special solo episode, a first for us here at Paradigm Shifts. And so I'll talk a little bit about that actually right now. So the format for Paradigm Shifts has changed just slightly. We're mixing it up a little bit. And so we are going to do one guest episode a month and one solo episode a month. Every 2 weeks, you'll hear from us at Paradigm Shifts, and we're so excited to bring more expert content, more thought leadership to you in the workplace. And before we unravel this topic, I would like to share a personal journey that led me here. Last year, as we wrapped up the first season of this very podcast, I found myself at a crossroads. There was so much support, just an outpouring of incredible feedback and just stories of impact from our guests were really beyond what I ever imagined. And everywhere I went, whether it was at events or casual meetups in the community, your stories of transformation and breakthroughs greeted me. And that positive energy was a true demonstration of what we've all created here together. Behind the scenes, the picture was a little different, and that's where I'm going to get a little personal. While I had unwavering support from my social media team at Argency US and the creative genius of my videographer, Gerardo, we poured our souls into every episode. We crafted content that resonated and selected guests who brought not only knowledge, but heart to their messages. And while I navigated my role as a director of organization development, the balance was delicate and the work was consuming me. And that whirlwind of success and passion, truth kind of emerged for me, a truth about the double-edged sword of loving what you do. And that realization that even in a sea of positive feedback and meaningful impact, one can really find themselves on the brink of breakout. And so the work was a labor of love, yet I learned an invaluable lesson that even when you're fueled by passion, there is a fine line between engagement and exhaustion. This is going to play right into our first solo episode here at the Paradigm Shifts podcast season 2. It brings us to the heart of this episode, which is the hidden side of passion, navigating burnout as an overfunctioner. How many of you can relate to overfunctioning? When I hear burnout and I hear people talk about burnout, usually it's in the way of there is a lack of purpose in their job, or they have a lack of meaning. They don't find it challenging enough, or perhaps it's not what they ultimately want to do. But what I'm here to talk about today is something I think a little bit more relatable to me, but hopefully relatable to many of you out there. And that is, what do you do when you love what you do? And that tale not often told about those of us who thrive in our work, especially if we're in the helping fields like psychology, HR, people ops, talent professionals. We have some boundaries that we need to be able to set and make. And I think it's a tale that needs telling. And I also think that it often goes unnoticed until it's too late. So today we're going to peel back the layers of that hidden side, explore the overlooked risks of burnout among passionate professionals. I'm going to dive into what it means to be an overfunctioner, especially in a world that celebrates relentless pursuit, and how to recognize the signs of burnout before it's too late. And then most importantly, we'll chat about some strategies for navigating and climbing out of burnout. How does that sound? All right. So As we begin this new season together, let's commit to not just chasing our passions, but nurturing our well being along the way. So, at the beginning of this episode, I shared with you how burnout has affected me personally. My corporate role as director of organization development is fulfilling, packed with projects that I'm genuinely excited about. And the podcast, which really has started out as a passion project, was hitting its stride. It was resonating with people in ways I've only hoped for. On paper, everything looked fantastic. But here's the thing about being driven and passionate. Sometimes it's tricky to see when it starts working against you. So what are the signs? Well, for me, my days began to stretch longer and the boundary between work and rest started to blur, especially with working remotely, which I truly love. Like that's a huge benefit and advantage to me is being able to get really focused work done. However, sometimes if there's not that blurred if boundary, that commute, that divide between that separation between both of those domains, they tend to blur. And sometimes you can feel like you're in a never ending work mode. So I've always considered myself someone who can handle a lot, but then the signs started showing up. I wasn't just tired, like I need a good night's sleep, but it started to really play out as like a deeper kind of tiredness that didn't go away. And it felt like even if I took time off on the weekends to recharge, it still didn't feel enough. But I think what affected me the most was creativity. It felt harder to come by. And if you know me personally, you know I'm always looking at how can we be more innovative? How can we think differently? How can I get creative about what I'm doing or the task at hand? And so that was a really hard thing to wrap my head around, is how to continue in the work that I love to do with not feeling like myself, not feeling like that creative joy. And so that joy that I usually find in my work, it kind of felt overshadowed by a sense of obligation. And then it hit me that I had been ignoring the signs because I was caught up in the work that I loved. And if you are feeling that way right now, stay tuned because we're going to talk a little bit about how to recognize the signs, and it's not too late how to climb out of it. Going through that period, though, just made me realize how important it is for us to recognize signs early on, especially for those of us who are passionate about our work. And it can be easy to just brush off the feelings of exhaustion, or if you have a dip in your enthusiasm, as just being part of the process, like naming it that way. But it's more than that. Burnout sneaks up quietly, and by the time you really do see it or others point it out, you could be already in too deep. So my experience taught me a crucial lesson about balance. And I'm using air quotes here because something that's often thrown around in conversations about work and life is this word balance, as if there's an idea that we can somehow perfectly divide our time and energy between work and our personal life and keep everything in these neat equal portions. And let's just be honest, that's unrealistic. And what it does is it implies this rigid equal distribution type of lens that for many of us who are passionate about our work, it's just not realistic or even desirable. And I'd like to help you think about balance in a different way. Think about it as the word harmony. Unlike balance, which can imply everything equal in measure, harmony is about blending different aspects of our lives in a way that feels right to us, moment by moment. It acknowledges that there are times when our professional life will demand more from us and other times when personal needs need to take the front seat. And the key is not to strive for an unrealistic standard of balance, but to seek a harmonious relationship between the different parts of our lives. You can think about it like music. In a symphony, not all instruments are playing at the same volume or even at the same time, but when they do come together, they create something really beautiful. And so similarly, when you harmonize your work and your personal life, it means understanding that some aspects will be more prominent and that it's okay. It's okay. And it's about making those paradigm shifts in focus consciously and deliberately, so that we're giving attention to what matters most to us in that time. So how do we do this? We start by listening to ourselves, our needs, and our ambitions. It's about being intentional with our time and recognizing the value of rest and rejuvenation as much as we do achievement and productivity or impact and influence or any of the motivational drivers or, the motives behind your behaviors or why you do what you do. So I'm sharing this with you because I believe there's power in recognizing our vulnerability. And I think it's a reminder for us all to keep an eye out for the signs of burnout in ourselves, but also in others. And before I dive into some strategies to climbing out of burnout, let's take a moment to understand what is happening to our brain when we are burnt out. Because one of the strategies is, hint, hint, understanding the science. So it's like uncovering the science behind the curtain, and don't worry, I will keep it simple. Burnout affects our brain chemistry and the way that it functions. And it does this by impacting our stress response system. At the heart of this process, there are two key players: your cortisol, which is often called the stress hormone, and dopamine, which is associated with our feelings of reward and pleasure. And when we're stressed over long periods, as is common with burnout, our bodies will produce more cortisol. So this isn't inherently bad because cortisol is crucial for us as humans in relation to survival and helping us respond to immediate threats. But when our cortisol levels are high all of the time, it can lead to feelings of constant tension and anxiety. It's like our body's alarm system is stuck on the on position, making it really hard to relax and recover. And dopamine plays a little bit of a different role. It rewards us with feelings of pleasure when we achieve something, whether it's finishing a big project at work or like enjoying a hobby. But in the state of burnout, our brain's reward circuits don't respond as effectively to dopamine. The things that once brought us joy and satisfaction don't kind of hit the same way. And that could lead to a loss of motivation and pleasure in our work around other activities. Why this is important to know, I hinted earlier, is that understanding the neuroscience behind burnout can guide you to choose different strategies to counteract its effects. Activities that reduce cortisol levels, like deep breathing, mindfulness, or even physical exercise, that can really help us calm our body's stress response. Simultaneously, when we engage in rewarding activities we genuinely enjoy, we rejuvenate our brain's dopamine pathways, and it slowly brings back the joy and satisfaction that we've missed. But it's not an overnight fix. So, by balancing our stress and reward systems, we can move towards recovery and rediscover the passion for our work and lives. So, now that we've talked about recognizing the signs of burnout and the science behind it, let's focus on how to climb out of it. First and foremost, climbing out of burnout starts with self-awareness. It's about taking a step back and honestly assessing how you're feeling. Are you chronically exhausted? Has your passion for work dimmed? Do you feel so exhausted that even a good night's sleep is not helping? Recognizing your feelings and being in touch with your body is really an important first step to addressing them. Once you're aware, self-care becomes key. This isn't just about like spa days or bubble baths, and I know those can be really nice, and you do you if that's your thing, but it's really about fundamental practices on a consistent basis, like ensuring you're getting enough sleep, eating well, what's your nutrition like, and finding times for activities that rejuvenate you, whether that's reading, hiking, or spending time with loved ones. The next strategy for climbing out of burnout is exercise. And this isn't just about staying fit. Regular physical exercise and activities can significantly reduce stress levels, improve your mood, and just enhance your overall well-being. It might take a little bit to get you to go, but once you do go, I've never heard anyone say, I regret getting that extra workout in, or I regret getting that physical activity in. It generally does improve your mood. Find something you enjoy. It could be yoga, it could be running, it could be dancing, and just make it a regular part of your routine. For me, it's training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The next strategy for climbing out of burnout is nutrition. What we eat has such a profound impact on our energy levels and our mood. Aim for a balanced diet that's rich in fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins. And then hydration is equally important with electrolytes. Those are some basic tips that we could use to climb out of burnout when you recognize signs. But another strategy that's difficult to manage upfront, if you're not familiar with this, is setting boundaries. And so it's has a little bit of a learning curve if you aren't someone who practices this regularly. But like anything else, once you practice and you get a hang of it, you will become comfortable with doing it. Setting boundaries is an essential part of self-care. This means having clear limits on your work hours and making sure that you're not constantly available or on call, and just letting everyone else around you know that. It's about learning to say no or not now, to even say, all right, what do I have on my plate right now, and negotiate deadlines with other things so that you can meet those deadlines without having it encroach on your well-being. The next strategy I want to talk about is the value of rest and support. Rest is not just a physical need, it's a mental and emotional one too. How many of you, even though I can't see you raising your hands, get through with a day of work and feel emotionally and mentally exhausted? Likely, if you are an overfunctioner or someone who's super passionate, you are feeling that way. And so regular breaks throughout the day, I like to call them brain breaks, are where you truly disconnect and allow yourself to recharge. For me personally, that's me taking 5-10 minutes to walk around the block or get some fresh air, get some exposure to the sun. Even taking my dog out for a walk just helps me get away from our technology and then come back being able to really focus. Now, support is equally important, and that can come from colleagues, it can come from friends, family, or your professional networks. But it's really important to have a supportive work environment where leaders recognize the signs of burnout and they actively work to prevent it, and that can make a significant difference. Gallup's research has shown that manager support is actually very crucial for employee engagement and well-being. So if you're a manager, encourage open conversations about workload and stress, because that can help mitigate burnout before it becomes a serious issue for your team members. All right, so here are some personal tools I leverage on a routine basis, and I'm going to interject. Journaling. Writing down your thoughts and feelings can be a really powerful way to process emotions and gain clarity. EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. Tapping involves tapping specific points on your body while talking through your emotions, and it's a technique some find helpful in reducing stress and anxiety. Me personally, it has changed my life. I'm actually going to have an episode on this coming out soon, so stay tuned, look out for that. And then meditation. Regular meditation can help calm your mind, reduce stress, and improve focus. Even just a few minutes a day can make a difference. And I can't remember where I've heard this before. If you don't have enough time to meditate for even 5, 10, 15 minutes, then you don't have time for anything. You can make time for this stuff. So the other thing that I personally love and enjoy including in my routines is breath work. These are simple breathing exercises that can be incredibly effective in managing our stress levels. Techniques like the 4-7-8 method or box breathing can be practiced almost anywhere. It's incredible how powerful our breaths are and how much medicine they can provide us if we only just tapped into it. And it gives you immediate relief, especially if you're in really stressful situations. So in the end, climbing out of burnout isn't about finding a perfect balance, but creating that harmonious relationship between work, our personal lives, our personal relationships, and everything else. And it's being mindful. It's about being mindful of our needs and taking those proactive steps to address them. Let's recap the key strategies to tackle burnout. Self-awareness. Notice when you're feeling off. Acknowledge it. Self-care. Prioritize sleep, nutrition, and activities that rejuvenate you. Set boundaries. Learn to say no, protecting your personal time. Rest and support. Take real breaks. Lean on your support network. That's what they're there for. And then understand the science. Listen to your body and take action. And now I want to leave you with a challenge, a mission, if you will, that's both fun and profoundly impactful. I'm going to call it the Passion Project Challenge. So here's the idea behind this. Dedicate some time each week to a non-work related activity that you're truly passionate about. It can be anything from painting, gardening, playing an instrument, mountain biking, whatever lights up that spark inside you. For me, like I said, it's going to be, it's usually training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But the goal here is to really step away from anything that makes it feel like a responsibility and immerse yourself in something that brings you joy. And joy is your job. It's no one else's. And then here's the twist. I want you to document how this passion project impacts your work and overall well-being. Notice any changes in your stress, creativity, job satisfaction, or just in how you engage with others. I don't want you to go on this journey alone. I want you to share your stories, your projects, and your results on social media. If you feel comfortable doing so, you can use the hashtag Passion Project Challenge so we can all follow along. And imagine creating this community of like-minded professionals where we're all supporting each other in preventing burnout together. I can't wait to see what you all come up with and to share in this journey of discovery and growth. So as we wrap up our discussion on navigating out of burnout, there's an essential piece of the puzzle that I do want to emphasize. Recovery from burnout is not an overnight fix. It's not something that a couple of weekends away, no matter how serene the setting is, that it can resolve on its own. Trust me, I've been there. And despite, going away to the mountains or sitting next to the ocean, climbing out of burnout is a journey that requires time and consistent effort. It took me months to truly start feeling like myself again, to see a significant decrease in my fatigue and a noticeable balance in my cortisol levels. The key really lies in recognizing the signs early and taking those corrective steps to address them, like we talked about throughout this episode. And as we look ahead, stay tuned for our next episode. I cannot wait for you to hear more coming from our first guest on the season 2 podcast later this month. And thank you for joining me on this journey today. Together, we're navigating out of burnout, and we're paving the way towards a more balanced and fulfilling approach to work and life. So here's to taking those steps together. Be patient with yourself. See you next time.